Welcome to the Millennial Network Podcast. Now your host, Coach Danny Renee.
What's up, y'all? Coach Danny Renee here, and this is the Millennial Network Podcast. Right here, we have here Devario. Devario is a young, I don't even know, are you a millennial? How old are
Yes,
you?
I am. I barely made it. I'm 26.
Oh, yeah. So you're like the youngest, you're the baby of the millennials. So Devario here is an entrepreneur, originally from Saginaw, Michigan. Are you still down here in Atlanta, or are you back in Michigan?
I am. I'm still here in Atlanta. I can't do the cold in the winter, baby.
Can't do the I hear that. So originally, obviously from Michigan, then you're down here in Atlanta, entrepreneur. What got you into entrepreneurship? And first,
Believe.
speak off what do you do?
Yeah. So, I got unfortunately a bag full of businesses. I say unfortunate because you got to learn how to run off 5-6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
But my wife and I, we own a balloon and consignment shop. So we sell cards. We do balloon decorations. We'll do like pop up at your events, stuff like that. I own a lot of real estate. I do consulting. I own a credit repair business, and then my wife owns a graphic design business. And we just recently purchased a franchise based out of here in Atlanta, but we will be opening up in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I'll keep that sort of under the wraps until we open up. Maybe that'll be part 2 of the interview. But
Okay, I'm for that. That's why I didn't introduce you formally like this is what he do, blah blah, because I do know that you have a history of I wouldn't even say a history. I've just seen, some of your progress since I've met you. Like for the audience, like I've met this guy, I think we went to it was like someone's party. So, I'm big on networking, right? So we were at a party and we were playing some kind of game. It was like just a social event. And we were playing some type of game. And I was like, this dude, I don't even think he was on my team. I think he was on the opposite team. And I'm very competitive. He's very competitive. So I was like, I like this dude. So I kind of adopted him as a little brother, and he just been growing since then. So obviously you have a background of sports. Was it baseball, basketball?
yes, ma'am. So 4-year varsity and 4-year 4-sport varsity in high school, but
Mm-hmm.
pursue baseball at the collegiate level, professional level as well. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't say cut short, but I actually cut that short myself after finding out, I had a baby on the way. It's difficult, going overseas, playing, and then trying to send the money back home. And, even outside of the money, your time is very much so, cut short with spending it with the family, which is kind of how I even got started in entrepreneurship as well.
Mm-hmm.
After I let go of ball, I'm like, okay, well, I'll, live the American dream basically. I got a degree. I know I can go get a sit down job at a desk, get paid a salary, and I'll, eventually get a house with the white picket fence and a dog and raise this cute family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of that was working except for the family portion of it. You live here in Atlanta, you know how traffic works. If they
Mm-hmm.
say your job starts at 7:30, you could be, only 5 miles away, but that could be 25 minutes. So
Right.
I'm up at 5 and trying to lift and eat. I'm out of the house by 6:45, and I'm not returning home until roughly that same time. Sometimes later, So trying to give time to a young marriage and everything at that, on top of a young baby. I'm trying to give time to myself, to my spouse, to my baby, and then you're doing 12 to 14 hours, for the job. You'll quickly realize, if you're doing 14 hours of work and you sleep in 8 of them, which is healthy, you only got 2 hours left to split amongst doing all your other stuff. And it kind of just wasn't working. So I, believe it or not, I cried. Um, that was how I got started. I just cried. I was pacing the floor, and I'm wondering, how can I need to make this money that I'm making at this job. Like, this is the type of money
Mm-hmm.
that that my coworkers are making. That's the type of money that I need. But I
And what were
also
you
want.
doing at the time?
I was recruiting actually for
Okay.
Aerotech. Aerotech is just basically headhunters. They doing all looking through resumes and trying to find the best fit. We're contracted under another company who doesn't want to do the recruiting. So I'm good with
Mm-hmm.
that. I feel like I can sell water to a drowning man. So that part was easy. However, like I said, the time was just not adding up. When I started to look at the people I wanted to be like in the professional field, they all had one thing in common: they didn't have a family. And I asked them why, and they were like, well, this job is just too demanding. It doesn't allow you to have a family. And I was
Wow.
like, you know what? no dollar amount is gonna, I can't go back now. My baby's here, and no dollar
Mm-hmm.
amount to me is worth, giving up my family for.
And
So
that was the
like,
people at Aerotech you felt
yes,
that was
ma'am.
doing real good?
Yes,
Wow.
ma'am. Everybody, and it wasn't even just, black or white or whatever. It was very diverse,
Mm-hmm.
very diverse squad. But the one common denominator with all of the account managers, what they call them, they're all the people who manage us recruiters. None of them had families. A few of them were,
Wow.
I know one was engaged, one was actually married, a few were trying to date. And when I brought up children, they were like, oh, that is beautiful. I want to do that someday. And in my mind, I'm thinking, these people make easily $250,000 a year. They've got a spouse, some of them, to help them, stuff like that. I think, what's stopping them. And they flat out just said, when I leave here, I'm drained. I'm depressed a lot of the times, or I'm even working on
Wow.
a Saturday, because I got to get ready for Monday. And I'm just thinking, like, you guys, yes, it's a salary, but I'm paid for the hours that I'm here. I'm not paid for the time I'm in the car. I'm not paid for the time I'm in the shower thinking
Yeah.
about work. I'm not paid for the time when my wife is trying to discuss our future, but I'm still talking about work at the dinner table. It was starting to consume me, and in a bad way. So like I said, I came home one day and I knew that I needed that job to pay them bills at the time, and I just started crying. And I thought to myself, what can I do to make that amount of money and not go to work? And it just was not adding up. And as I'm speaking to myself, reasons why I can't do it, one of the reasons that came out of my mouth was rent is due.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stopped. I froze. I stopped crying. I stopped talking. I stopped walking. And I was like, that's it. Like, if I owned enough homes and people were paying me rent, because at the time I was living in an apartment, I'm like, it's easily 1,000 units out here times $1,000 a month.
Right.
This person got some deep pockets. Um, and after that, I started running. I started asking myself questions after a book I read. Rob Kiyosaki says, ask yourself, how can I afford something versus just saying I can't.
Wait,
Our
which book?
brains, like,
Which book was it?
financial intelligence. A
Thank
lot of
you.
people don't.
Finally, a different book because everybody's always
Yeah,
saying Rich Dad Poor Dad, which
yeah,
is a great
nah,
book,
yeah,
but
yeah.
wanted to hear something
It's
different.
Yeah, it's cool, but I read the whole series. Rich Dad Poor Dad is kind of the baseline,
Mm-hmm.
which I end up reading that after. But financial intelligence talks about, ask yourself, how can I afford something versus just saying I can't. And at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, if I leave my job, how can I afford it? Even if I stayed, how can you buy it with none of your own money? I had awful credit at the time, so I started asking, why is it bad? Then I figured out why it was bad. I figured, well, how can I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
Can I do this for other people? Can I grow with partners? So just those little questions started to lead to more businesses. Like, asking the right questions led me to fixing my own credit, which led me to start my own credit repair company, which led me to not only just buying my own house, but when I rent to people, now I can make money twice because the tenant also needs credit help. So it
Wow.
just started to snowball into a lot of different businesses.
Wow. So was Aerotech your first job? Wait, did you actually go overseas and play, or you were like, no, I'm done before I actually went overseas?
Yep, I did not go. I
Okay.
saw it, and I, dream of a lifetime per se. But the one thing I've always wanted more than that, baseball was my first love. But the one thing I wanted more than that as I grew up was to be a husband and a father because I grew up in a single parent household. So
Mm.
even though that's every ball player's dream, I'm looking at this 3-day old child and I'm like, I'm not leaving.
Wow.
So Aerotech was
And
my first taste of employment. First taste of
okay.
real world life.
And you know what? Thank you so much for saying like your story and your background and just being a black man embracing a vulnerable side. Like we hear oftentimes men are being judged for crying and showing emotion. The fact that you can tell your story and like I cried. Like you don't hear too many men talk about it. And I think it's okay, it's an emotion. And sometimes we do need to cry because that cry lets out all those emotions and refreshes us, but it also get us to a place of thought, which you got to, right?
Yeah.
So you got to Aerotech, you realize that, excuse me, you had a family taken care of. First of all, everybody, you were married at what age?
22.
22. So husband at 22. Yeah, he's changing generations, right? So you were working at Aerotech, you went home, you cried, you realized this is not reality. this is not what I want for my future, right? Because I already have a family. So after working at Aerotech, how did that go from I don't want to do this job to now I'm going to be this real estate investor, credit coach, and then multiple business owners or franchisee?
Believe it or not, a lot more crying. I left, and then I'll be honest, I just started to think. I started to. One of my goals always was to be the man in like in other people's life who I needed to be. You know, who I needed growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Which led me to want to reach back out to high school. When I went to high school, I saw a lot of athletes there who couldn't afford to pay their dues. I thought, well, how can I help them? Let's do fundraising. I started to call around. I was able to get cookies and fundraising stuff at a wholesale price. And then the
Mm-hmm.
business part of me went to the high school. Was like, hey, how much are you making off your fundraisers now? I bet you I can beat that and buy 2,000, 3,000%, which I was able to do. Um, and I was able to basically have these children sell fundraising cookies, make a hell of a lot more money off of it, cover their dues. The parents are happy. The coaches are happy because they're getting more money for their program. Lastly, I'm happy because I'm making roughly $10 off of each sale. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to say my first sale that I ran was closer to $10,000, and it was over in
Wow.
2 weeks. And I started to think, okay, well, if I make $10,000 in 2 weeks, that's borderline pushing $1,000 a day, and it was tax free. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
about how much money I make at work and working more time and more time away from my family and stuff like that. And that just kind of started to like spark the bug. I'm like, okay, if I can
Okay.
get things for cheap and sell them for more, awesome, great. But like I said, I also wanted to think about longevity. I can sell that thing, no doubt. However, I have to keep doing it if I want to keep making money. You're basically a small business owner. You own a job. The moment I stop selling things is the moment where they will. I stop making money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I got into passive income, and that led me right to the real estate.
Wow. And in real estate, you started where?
Actually, after my wedding, I had a friend of mine who decorated a hotel for us. He made it all sexy for me and the wife, yada yada yada. And like I said, just being transparent. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I went back and I cried. Um, I that's just not what I envisioned for um, life after my wedding. I thought I was gonna get married and then come home, and the apartment just did not feel like home to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my first start in real estate was buying my own home. And it's funny, I follow you on social media. You actually posted something. Is a house a liability or an asset? I was
Mm-hmm.
super excited to buy that home, because I'm like, oh, I got my first asset, whatever, whatever. But I figured out quickly that it is a liability. It's not making me any money. So now I
Thank you
started
for
to think,
answering that.
I'm like, you know what? I need more of these. Let me just start by trying to pay my phone bill with an asset. So I got a house that was only cash flowing $200. And then, like I said, I started writing all my bills down and just kept growing and growing and growing and growing.
So as far as like your real estate start, so you bought your first house here in Atlanta,
Uh huh.
and you realized that it was a liability. You said your next property was cash flowing you $200.
Yep.
So how many properties do you have right now?
I manage 32 tenants now.
32 tenants. Okay, so walk us from you buying your first house to getting your next house at 200. Was that in Atlanta?
Yes. Yep. Right here, outskirts of
Okay,
Atlanta. I got 2 acres
so
here as well. So
So how did you go from your first? So you went from crying to selling cookies to buying your first house to now acquiring another property, cash flowing you 200. How long did it take from you buying your house to getting a second house?
6 weeks.
Okay, and how were you able to do that? Because some
Believe it or
people are
not,
already struggling with the first house.
right. I was struggling. I was broke. So with the
Mm-hmm.
first house with FHA, they got a lot of rules. And I knew a lot, but didn't know a lot. None of my father doesn't own a home, my mother doesn't own a home, and my wife, it's the same deal. So I didn't have anybody to ask or whatever. So I was learning a lot as I went. And I knew I had a lot of credit now at the time after, I had built it up and was able to qualify, but I didn't have the liquid things that I didn't know about, such as closing costs, down payment, stuff like that. So because I'm a thinker and how can I afford it after reading that book, I was able to
Mm-hmm.
liquidate credit cards with the perfect timing so they wouldn't report on my credit report and be seen by the lender. And I liquidated all those cards, and then I used that to close on the first house. But as mentioned, now the credit card bills start coming. I'm like, wait a minute, like, okay, let me get this together here. So,
Wait. Let's pause real quick before you keep going. You said you were able to liquidate the credit card. So are you saying that you took the credit card if it had a $10,000
that's
limit,
funny.
you went to the ATM
No, so
or
believe it
how?
or not,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways you can liquidate a credit card. I did not
Okay,
go
I
to the
want to hear
ATM. Don't go to the ATM actually because they
them.
will charge
Right.
you
That's what I was thinking.
a daily fee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be short and quick. I know this is a gray area. A lot of people got different feelings about it, but it's not illegal to, if I met you in the store, you're struggling, I hear you on the phone, you're trying to send money to a person, right? And I say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I want to help this young lady out. What are you trying to do, man? I just need to send my son a money order. All right, awesome, cool. I would like to buy this money order for you with my credit card. I can do that for myself also. So I
Mm.
can go to the store, buy a money order or a gift card even with my credit card. You can spend it how you please or cash the money or how you please. So I bought money orders, put my own name on them, took them
Mm.
to my bank, cashed them, and there it was. But you can do it with a lot of different things. So you can do it with, like, you
Right.
can go to Best Buy, you can buy $10,000 worth of flat screen TVs, wait a day. That way you get
Mm-hmm.
your rewards points, spending bonuses, cashback rewards, things like that. Take it back, and the only way you get it on a debit card is if you buy $10,000 worth of stuff. You put 9,995 on the credit card. You put five on your debit card. When you return it, you say, "Hey, I would like to put this on the card that I purchased it with." They're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, awesome, bring us that card. You put the debit card in there. You did purchase it with that. They didn't ask what percentage. You only put $5. Now all of that credit goes onto a debit card. Now you have liquid cash.
Okay.
So
Wow. So
I bought my first house, the one I live in. I was able to liquidate for the closing costs and stuff like that.
so you saying your first house you did that, not the second one?
Yeah, the second one I actually bought using none of my own, like nobody's money. I'm sorry, well, somebody else's money. None of my own money. None of my own credit either.
Okay.
Um,
So we're gonna come back to that because um I did have a credit person. He came on and he was talking about manufacturer spending, which it sounds like you kind of
yeah.
briefly going over. But I guess like a question when it comes to your process, because like you said, the interest eventually started coming in after 30 days, so you still have to pay it back, right? But you mentioned the example as far as like the gift cards and the money orders and stuff like that. But after a day, you get those reward points. I've seen it like on one of my cards before, and I wasn't even running a manufacturing play. It was just I returned something, and then they took those points back. So is that typical? Is that, I don't know if it's every credit card is like
It,
different, but that they take points back?
Yeah, so you got to do your homework on your cards. Like I said, that's just a way to do it. Sometimes people aren't, like, in my sense, I could care less about the points. I wanted to buy this
Mm-hmm.
house,
Right.
but like I said, there's different ways to go about manufacturer spending. For example, the gift card, that's not taking anything back. I still got the cash, just on a different card. There's even a
Mm-hmm.
thing called a fuse card, which, you believe it or not, it's digital. It looks like a bank card. You can actually take it to a bank and withdraw money and things like that, and you won't lose your points.
Mm-hmm.
Some cards give you spending bonuses or just bonuses, period, just for getting approved. So there's a lot of different, like, every card has their ups and downs and annual fees and stuff like that. But you mentioned the interest started after 30 days. So actually just the payment came after 30 days. A lot of cards will give you an intro 15-month, 18-month period where you just borrowing dollar for dollar. So most of the
Okay.
cards that I was liquidating did not have any interest for the first at least year. Yeah. So
I hope
like
y'all
that.
hearing this.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, let me run it up. Like, if y'all gonna loan me money dollar for dollar, I'm about to run it up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, when I got in here, I was like, you know what? Let me start buying more. But how? I'm like, I'm broke, yada yada yada. So this is me, transparent, maxed out credit cards. How can I get another one? I
Mm-hmm.
can't apply for more credit cards right now because my utilization is up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what I did was I found, this is where the negotiation piece comes in. I find a guy selling the house for 15K. I asked why is he selling. Now I've got ammo to use against him. I found out why
And
he
this
was
is the
selling.
second house?
Yeah, my second home.
Okay.
He wants $15,000 hard liquid cash. He was dead set on it, but he's a former landlord. So I tell him, you get 15K now after you pay capital gains tax and yada yada yada. You ain't even walking away with 15K. How about I offer you 25K, but I'm going to pay you over time. I'm going to give you 10% down, so you get a few $1,000s. And he lives in
Mm-hmm.
Saginaw, so that goes fairly decent way. People there aren't, they don't have Atlanta money. So I gave him
Mm-hmm.
10. I offer 10% down, and I will pay you $375 for 60 months. That way you still make money like a landlord, not as much, but you also don't have the headache. It's
Right.
my responsibility. You just selling it to me, seller finance or land contract. Everything's my responsibility. Any repairs, taxes, etc. And he fell in love with that idea because he can now make money for these next 60 months, but without doing anything. So what
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do was I asked him, "Do you mind if I come get pictures? So I can show my wife, blase blase." Yeah, no problem. What I did was when I went to go get pictures and video, I actually posted it that I was renting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know who my market is. They are bad credit people. So if you got bad credit, I need first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit minimally. So it's $700 a month. That's $2,100. I only told this guy I was going to give him 25 down. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to post the house, find a tenant, and get them to pay their 3 months dues. And with that plus all the application fees, I had $2,500 on the dot. So I was able to get this house with none of my own money. And by the time the next
That's
payment was due,
crazy.
right. So by the time the next payment was due, they paid me $700. I set aside money for insurance, taxes, whatever, and I was able to pay him his 375 and didn't use any of my own money. And now today, I actually own that home free and clear, way
Okay.
faster than the 60 months because as meant like I waited a year. Hey man, I paid you, this amount of money, now over a year. You remember you originally only wanted 15. You think you can meet me right here, with a buyout? And he took a few $1,000s. He was like, you know what, man, you've been awesome. Go ahead, take it. I actually got one more. Two houses down, you can have that one too. And now I own
Wow.
two houses that are a door apart on the same street.
That's crazy. So I hope y'all heard this whole breakdown. So you just mentioned with the second house and how you like walked us through that, but then you still had your house where you liquidated all this credit.
Right.
So my first question with the second house is you offered to pay this man all of this and you have a tenant. Are you at the time still creating passive income for yourself even though you created a promise to him?
Yes. Yeah. So with my promise per se to him being only
Mhm.
375 and the rent being 700, I already done my prior math. I called, make sure the insurance can insure the house. They can for only $50 a month, and
Mhm.
taxes in Saginaw are only $50 a month, and rubbish bill is the only other overhead you'll have. It's $20. So that
Mhm.
120 plus his 375, that puts me right around just to say $500. Roughly. That's why I got the
Mhm.
$200 cash flow. So I'm
Mhm.
still making passive money there, and I like that, especially for new beginners with real estate. If you do the land contract option and you find a low down payment option like I did, especially if the tenant can pay it for you, it's safe in a sense where you want to try something, you're not sure if it's going to work. And if it doesn't work and you decide to walk away, everybody's sort of happy because you didn't pay any of your money down, really. Even if you did, it's a very minimal loss depending on the purchase price. And
Mhm.
the seller is actually happy because he got your down payment, a couple months worth of payment, stuff like that. And then he now gets the house back and he can resell. But if you walk away and you've done this with a bank, you still owe that bank. They don't care. They want their money back. You walk
Right.
away from a seller finance, it does not impact your credit. You can go back to the drawing board and say, look, I messed up in these spots. I'm going to go try it again with no impact. It's just like no
Mhm.
harm, no foul.
So this is kind of like I don't know what the name of it would be, but it sounds like a different way of doing wholesaling because you technically just got the contract with no money out of your pocket and then was able to rent it out to someone else. Would that
You
be
got it.
similar to like wholesaling?
Very similar. Yep. With wholesale, you just
Okay.
trying to put buyer and seller together. With this,
Mhm.
you are technically the buyer, except you're finding a tenant to put up your down payment.
Mhm. Okay. So you mentioned property number 2. Oh yeah. So going back to the question, now you have all of this money on your credit cards, but you're only getting $200 a month passive income. So what were you doing in the process to
So
getting that all paid down?
after I got the house for only $2,500 of my own dollars, I then find out, well, not really my own dollars, but $2,500 down. I then found out what the home appraised for. The house actually appraised for 60K. So I was able to move my credit card. Basically, with credit cards, you can slide debt around. You can move it to different cards. I was able to move it, so they all reported again that they were low. I then had a high credit score. I took that deed from that second house, took it to a bank. I refinanced it for right around like 30 some $1,000. A
Okay.
$30,000 refinance, which is technically a mortgage, is, believe it or not, right under $200. So I'm still,
Mhm.
everything in that second house is still paying for itself. The guy is being paid, all of the overhead is being paid, and now my second mortgage, which is the refinance, is being paid. I now have $30,000 to use. I took the $30,000, paid my credit cards down to zero, and then
Mhm.
I've still got about $15,000 left. But I used that 15 to go start more land contracts like the second home that I bought. So
Mhm.
now, even if I couldn't find a tenant to give me the money, like all up front, basically how I did the first time, I've still got $15,000. Let's just say you cut it by 3,000. That's 5 land contracts I can go purchase.
Mhm.
And then I started to do the same thing on those, which is the cycle. Everybody calls it BRRRR now. So you buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat.
Wow. So this has been your market, like you said, the whole time where you're doing more like the lower income market where the credit score is not that great and you're creating different houses like the first one. Is that kind of how you got to your 32?
Absolutely. I start
Mm-hmm.
once you get one, it'll buy you your next one if you know what you're doing. If a lot of people are scared of the debt part, um, until you make the debt work for you. So I
Okay.
started to find my sweet spot. I can buy more expensive homes, but then I realized that just because you bought the house for more doesn't necessarily mean that the cash flows more.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I looked at how I felt as a renter. And I found out I was an anomaly. My wife and I, we like to keep up whatever space we're in, even if it's a box. But not
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks that way. A lot of renters think like, well, this ain't my forever home. It ain't my home at all. I don't care, yada yada yada. So I started to just buy. I'm not necessarily a slumlord. I wouldn't, do anybody like that. I don't treat people, a way that I wouldn't
Right.
like to be treated. However, when I'm in Home Depot and I'm looking at carpet that's $219 a square foot, and 79 cents a square foot, I'm definitely rolling with the 79 because unfortunately, poverty stricken families usually don't take care of their things. They never had anything nice to know how to take care of it. So I know who my market is. I go usually buy these cheap homes, keep rent sub $1,000 because they can afford it. And usually the people who need it are single women with children. Those women
Wow.
usually have assistance as well. Like my
Mm-hmm.
mother did, so I get Section 8 people, or they got Project Home or United Way, things like that. And it's like a guaranteed check every month.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I got a balloon and consignment shop. So I got their birth dates and kids' birth dates on my leases. Just something as simple as a card, a gas card.
Yeah.
I text one lady, hey, you were tenant of the year. We're actually going to lower your rent by $25 this year. Those type
Wow.
of things keep people around. And I figured out, like when people are poor and, they don't have anything or they don't know any better, they stay where they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is just to make them comfortable, and believe it or
Humble.
not, they'll stay 3, 4, 5 years. So for a house that I paid nothing for really, for them to pay it off for me and some, I'm fine with that. And usually they all got friends, birds of a feather flock together. They call somebody. I actually got a homegirl who's looking too, and yada yada. And they're feeding me tenants at this point. The only problem I have with real estate right now is I don't have enough houses for the people that are messaging me.
And you're obviously still looking to grow, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you have, I know you mentioned these are all single families. And are your properties in Michigan, Saginaw, where you're originally from?
Yes, ma'am. All of them
Yes.
are there, and then my
Okay.
wife is gonna start pursuing Airbnbs here in Atlanta.
Okay. And what about, so are they all single family or you
No,
say you have
no. So
32?
I don't own 32 single families.
Okay.
I figured out just like the banks, like they have a loan minimum a lot of the times because they're like, no, the same work it takes for me to do a $500,000 mortgage is the same for a $10,000. So I started to
Mm-hmm.
think to myself, I want to retire off real estate and I want to make at least $15,000 a month passively. That's 30 homes, cash flowing $500 a door. But I thought, man, I can't do this 30 times. Like, it was starting to get ridiculous. So that's when I
Mm-hmm.
started to realize I can buy multifamily the same way. So with single family, I got one tenant paying me all of the upfront costs. Well, with multifamily, I got four people paying me those upfront costs. It
Mm-hmm.
actually ended up being the down payment and some. So my
Okay.
wife and I, we ended up getting a commercial spot where my store is actually in one commercial space. I rent out the commercial space next door, and then there's 5 apartments upstairs. So that gets you
Mm-hmm.
sort of to your goal a lot faster. And then, like I said, same deal. That thing appraises for a lot more than you bought it for. Believe it or not, we only bought that for 150. It's actually cheaper than the liability I live in here. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get that on a seller finance, $20,000 down, $1,500 a month for 10 years. But you make
Wow.
$1,500 a month in one commercial space's rent.
Mm-hmm.
So I just
So
took off.
how important would you say the knowledge of and the process of credit is with acquiring all of these homes?
I think it's like borderline everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
liquid takes you some places. Don't get me wrong, but once you use liquid, once it's spent, it's spent. It doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
allow you for time to make mistakes, which
Mm-hmm.
I actually encourage. Like I encourage people to go out and make mistakes because those are some of the best lessons. With
Mm-hmm.
credit, I can make a $10,000 mistake, pay that card down over time, and yeah, it's gonna sting a little bit. You're gonna have some interest and stuff like that. But I built a relationship. That's even if you're going solo, that credit card, that bank is still a partner with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pay that card down now, they say, well, this guy's kind of responsible. We'll raise his limit, and other banks will see that as well. You'll start to get more offers. So I honestly, like I borderline say, credit is everything. Like you need to know what you're doing. Obviously, with just knowledge, period, on real estate, but knowing
Yeah.
how to maneuver the credit that's gotten me so far.
Okay. Now you mentioned mistake. What's a mistake that you've made that you're willing to share within this whole
Oh,
process of acquiring 32?
um, not using my personal credit to secure business funding first. Um, I'm not sure if we're allowed to curse on here, but I'll keep this.
Do it, be you.
All right, cool. So, an old head of mine, he actually adopted me at a young age. He told me a story. There were two male sheeps at the top of the hill looking down
Mm-hmm.
at a lot of female sheep. And the young one says, "Hey, man, let's run down and fuck one of them." And the old one says, "Well, let's walk down and we can fuck them all." So a lot of the times when you're young and excited, you want to go fast. And that was
Mm-hmm.
me. I knew better. I knew to get business credit first and did not do so. Um, and now, like I said, I had to do a lot of moving around with my personal credit to lower my utilization, to then hide this, hide that. And it just like wasn't the smartest thing to do, but I wanted to go fast. I was so eager to get started that I just went.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely wasn't the smartest thing to do. Other mistakes too, I'll share. Don't make deals with tenants. A lot of the times you might find a person that's handy or whatever, and I can just do this in exchange for rent. Don't do it. If you can remain anonymous, do it. Saginaw is a small town, so that's why the real estate's cheap, yada yada yada. But a lot of people know who you are, so they'll message you on Facebook, stuff like that. And stick to your processes. I got property management stuff in place now. I don't even respond to text messages or anything. I just send you a link. You go through my process. I don't care that we went to school. People have literally sat next to me in class and they're renting from me now, like from high school.
Oh.
Awesome, cool. But that does not mean you get first dibs. You do still have to pay the application fee. And then lastly, I stole this from Alex Good Energy, the trucking guru. I met him in person, and he says he tells his drivers, I'll pay you more on accident before I short you on purpose. And I
Mm-hmm.
sort of took that and put it into a ball. And in regards to real estate, I tell my tenants, I'm not your boss. We're business partners. It's my goal to make sure your roof over your head is safe for you and your family. And in return, I need my rent on time because that's how I feed my family.
Right.
And I've had a lot of success with that. With all of these tenants, I've actually only had to evict one person. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, no business is fail proof. And for me to, been in real estate now since 19, This is year number 3. I've cycled through a lot of tenants, especially with multifamily. Those are usually higher turnover rate.
Mm-hmm.
I've only had one eviction.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned business credit, right? And a lot of stuff that I watched in the past, it talks about, credit, because we were talking about like manufacturer spending credit. I had someone on here talk about credit and, even multi-families. But one of the things I feel like people don't talk about a lot is the relationship that they have with the bank. So you're mentioning business credit, right? Business credit could come from different, banks or, crediting institutions.
Right.
But then you're saying that you go back to the bank and refinance. Are you with multiple banks? Are you with one bank? And how are you establishing a relationship with these banks?
Definitely multiple banks, multiple checkings accounts, multiple savings accounts, multiple credit cards. I believe I've got over 15 or 16 different credit cards. Reason being, I'm a competitor and I'm stubborn, and you won't tell me the answer no. So some banks may say no, and that's when I may go to a different bank. You got to learn how things report to different agencies. Some banks only report to TransUnion, so you might say, "Oh, well, let me borrow from this bank. We're super cool." But on TransUnion, it shows you got $42,000 borrowed. But Equifax only shows you got 11. So you got to really, like I said, know which banks report to who and pull from where. And so yes, definitely multiple banks, definitely multiple accounts, because those relationships go far. Like I said, there's always one bank that will loan you the money. No matter the score, honestly, you can get, you might get a 24% interest rate from some if you're like in the 4s or the 5s. But you got to understand how business works. They want you to borrow that money at that rate. They make their money off interest. So somebody will loan you some money.
Okay. And you say you got to know this information about the bank. So how does one study this information about the banks? You just go in there and ask questions? Is there ways
Honestly,
to research it?
yes, you can. Well, with COVID now, a lot of people don't even like you to come in. But there's just as simple as getting on the phone. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. Listen, I got a huge project I want to run with you guys. I was just wondering, I got a very strong TransUnion. Just wanted to know which bureaus you pull from. Oh, we actually don't pull TransUnion at all. We pull Equifax, or we pull all 3, or and then you like Capital One, for example. They have great credit cards, but you're gonna get 3 inquiries for 1 card. Never been a huge fan of that. I do have them. I have multiple Capital One, but just know that you're gonna get a few inquiries, just for 1 card. I did later on learn that you can get 1 inquiry and then ask for a manual review. Hey, don't let the system pull it. You now have my report in front of you. Let me know what I'm eligible for right now while you're looking at it. You can go dispute inquiries also, if you don't have an account open with it. But yeah, in regards to obtaining information, a simple phone call. Sometimes information is on sites and stuff like that. But if you do have a credit card, they'll mail you their decision, like to approve you. They'll send you your score that you got approved at, let you know which bureaus they report to on what days. So yeah.
Okay. So with all of these properties, you have pretty sure your access to money through business credit has increased, as well as throughout the past several years. Because how long have you been doing this process?
3 years now.
3 years. 3 years to 32. Okay. So you've been doing it for 3 years. So I'm pretty sure your access to money in the form of business credit has increased. But also, I don't know much about Saginaw, but I'm pretty sure just like everywhere else, your equity has probably increased with these houses as well. So how are you leveraging, I don't even know if this is the right question, but how are you leveraging your access to equity and your access to business credit right now?
So that's actually a great question. That actually goes back to the refinancing thing. First of all, Saginaw does not appreciate like a lot of different markets. Appreciation usually comes from, like, it's gonna happen naturally. The rate at which it happens depends on the city. We know Atlanta's the Black Hollywood. People want to move to Atlanta. It's the cool thing to do depending where you come from. It's the cheaper thing to do if you're coming from like New York or Jersey. So a lot of people got their reasons as to why they're coming here. But Saginaw, Michigan is people say, oh, is it Detroit? Is it this? Is it that? There isn't much new development there.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, just because, the God I believe in, I ain't never seen him come back down here and make no more land. So real estate is, always real estate is going to go up. So what I'm doing now is, like I mentioned, I bought these houses at dirt cheap,
Mm-hmm.
and now they are appraising for more. I literally will run to the bank now that I do have access to business credit or whatever. So this is what I do. My personal self has to guarantee these refinances. I
Mm-hmm.
go to the bank and I borrow this money. And then now, even after I swipe it, I can still move that debt over, as mentioned, over to business credit, hide it from my personal, and I'm right back at ground
Mm-hmm.
zero.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go to a financial question. So now you have access, like you say, you can move around this equity and whatnot. How are you protecting that equity? Because remember when we were talking about, is a house, um, an asset or a liability. So obviously you know the difference, but even then, you still own these. So I don't know how many you have paid off currently. But how are you protecting your equity within these houses?
So a lot of the equity is, I've heard, from different people, like, oh, you control the comps.
Mm-hmm.
You create the equity. That only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you literally own a whole block that you can do whatever you want to do to it. So some of the equity you just can't control in regards to protecting it. Like, oh, I want to keep it up. I want to keep it up. That's just what the market's gonna do. But
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned in Saginaw, there's not really much equity to even discuss. Like, we're talking over the last 5-10 years, maybe $20,000, $30,000 at the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I do is, like I said, when I pull that equity, I protect it by buying more real estate,
Mm-hmm.
and real estate that I can own outright. To answer your question, I do own 5 of the homes outright, free and clear, no money
Okay.
owed on it, not even a refinance mortgage. Um, and like when I do refinance money, I'm very strategic about what I go by next. And
Mm-hmm.
I treat my dollars like Aerotech treated me, like an employee. I get that dollar and put his ass to work. So I mean, I'll borrow this money. Seriously, like before I even, the dope part about it is too, it's not a loan, it's a line of credit. So you don't pay on it until you swipe it. But I'm very
Mm-hmm.
strategic about what I buy. So like what I got cooking now, I'll share this with you. I got a house that I just purchased. Well, I'm sorry, I got it for free basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth about 41,000. I'm
Okay.
gonna be able to borrow right around 30-ish. Um, but I was able to find a deal where the guy only wants 20K down for 6 doors. Six
Mm-hmm.
doors at $700 a month is 4,200.
Mm-hmm.
So the house that I'm gonna refinance has no mortgage and I own free and clear. If I borrow 30, the tenant will pay that, so I'm good there. I'm still protected, and I will take the 30 and take 20 of it and buy 6 more doors, and those 6 doors are already rented out at $700 a month. One of those homes actually belongs to my mother, so that will actually be a double-edged sword. It'll feel good in regards to acquiring more doors, but that'll
Mm-hmm.
actually be my mother's first home. And
Wow.
she doesn't know it yet, but she's a Christmas baby. And this deal is in the works now, so I'm gonna basically just give her a late Christmas present and just let her know there is no more rent. I'm in a position
Man,
now where that $700 a month is not gonna kill me. So
that's
that's where we're at.
awesome. Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you shared that. So going back to the protection, the reason I asked that question is because I know, like, when you look at 2008, a lot of these mortgages and houses were inflated, and then obviously a lot of people lost their houses. So I always ask people, like, going back to the question, like, is your house a liability or an asset? Because most people don't necessarily have that equity per se, because the house is a liability. I don't care what nobody says until you turn it into equity or an asset. Well, equity is an asset, but if something was that, I remember reading a story a while back, and I think it was like a married couple. One of them got really injured to where they were in a coma or something, to where I think it may have been in like one of their names. So the person that was injured in a coma, they couldn't work. So this other spouse, and I could be telling it wrong, so everybody don't quote me on this, but the other spouse couldn't, I don't know if she couldn't make payments on the house or something. And
Uh,
essentially, she lost the house. So I'm saying that because a lot of people, we buy houses, we're excited, but we don't protect that equity. Oh, and also going back to 2008, people could spend all this money and they put all this money into these houses, but the houses is not, that aspect is not protected so that it can go on to, like their families and different things. So I was just curious, like if you had like any
Oh yeah,
trust or
with trust and
different
things
things.
like that.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
obviously
so that's
I don't do wheels and trust or whatever, and I do want to get somebody on here to kind of go in more in depth on that process. But I was just curious, like considering you have so much, if you
yeah.
went through a
So
process like
that's
that.
actually a great question.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to making the payments, my wife is like a second me. She done got on the phone, with the
Mm-hmm.
transgender stuff and stuff like that. You can't even say, "Wait, Devario, this don't sound." You might get fired for saying it.
Yeah.
So she got all my stuff. She can make payments on everything. She's on all my accounts. She's
Mm-hmm.
authorized, things like that. But what you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking on is like how the if you hell, I could walk outside and get ran over right now and they'd be over with.
Yeah.
Who are these things left to? Um, Definitely have that set up for anybody. Like I recommend that hell before you even buy the house. If you're thinking
Yeah.
about buying it, get that stuff set up because yes, you're right. That's how people end up losing it. And in
Yeah.
regards to me, actually, I'm actually like I thought, oh well, you got all the different LLCs, you're protected. You are, but only so far. You're protected
Yeah.
in regards to somebody suing you or something.
Yeah.
But this year, believe it or not, yes, I am 26 and I do have a planner. I'm transparent. My mind be all over the place, but it is on my planner. It's funny. Tuesday marks the first, and I actually have a meeting with a young lady just for that, just to
Okay.
make sure that I am set up in the right way because these 32 houses, I live off of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm sorry, these
Mm-hmm.
32 doors, but they are not for me. I'm trying to close this wealth gap. Our blacks average net worth is $17,000 versus the white family average is $170,000. I'm
Yeah.
trying to close that gap, and the way to do that is, well, one way to do it is passing down homes. Like most of us start off with two strikes when we graduate high school. We got to pay rent if we leave our mother, and then we got to pay our car note because we got the car note to go to the job that we needed to pay the rent. You know what I'm saying? So we start this cycle. Long story short, I need to make sure that these girls get this stuff, pay the least amount of taxes, if any. If I find a way, I'm actually reading a book right now, Tax Free Wealth. It's a Kiyosaki series
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
Tom Wheelwright, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make sure that things are in position so everybody ain't frying tacos and whatever GoFundMe pages.
Rhymes.
Like, and listen, I don't need none of that. Put me in the ground,
Right.
burn me up if you got to. You know what I'm saying? Burn me up, put me in a little urn. Y'all go party, do y'all
Mm-hmm.
thing, and so that was
Okay.
actually a great question. It's funny you mentioned that. I literally have this appointment set up for this week because it's important. I'm always in the air
Awesome.
flying back and forth. It might be my day one of these days that plane goes down. And then now what? Like I got all these houses and for what?
Young married man, y'all. Y'all better listen to him. So all these houses, are they in your LLC? You mentioned that. So
Yeah,
are
so
they
I,
all in
I
your
have
business
I
name?
have an I have an umbrella that holds the different LLCs and then those hold the homes.
So each
Um,
house is a different LLC.
Simply
Okay.
because it snows up there, accidents happen, whatever. You walk
Yeah.
outside, you fall, you hurt yourself, and now you do want to sue me. One, I don't own anything on paper, the person, so that's dope. And then secondly, if you happen to win, you only get what you're suing the company. That
Mm-hmm.
company only has that house. So at best, you could get that house.
Wow.
At
Okay.
best,
So let me ask you this. So obviously you're a married man, and congratulations to you. Just had a little boy
little
or
girl,
another little girl. So you had two girls now.
another hole in my pocket.
Nice. Awesome. So how you mentioned earlier when you were working at Aerotech and how these people are committing so much hour towards their job, but you saying like even managing it all, you're still trying to figure that out and you're still like barely getting any sleep. So I think there's a part you on social media, entrepreneurship looks so attractive. Traveling, spending money by designer, right? But I think there's a part that everybody's missing, and it's the hustle and grind in the beginning stages. Like, hey, you put a lot of information into like getting to where you're at, right? So with you getting very limited sleep and also being a married man, how do you prioritize your businesses but yet still be a father and a husband?
So I can say this: the sleep I'm getting now, this 5-6 hours, was the same I was getting at Aerotech. However, I'm
Mm-hmm.
waking up working for Allen Tech basically instead of Aerotech. Like, this is me, so I got more energy to get up and do it. Secondly, I would argue and say that I'm either working some days the same amount of hours, if
Mm-hmm.
not more, but the schedule is mine. So I wake up. Some days I want to go to the gym first thing in the morning, and I go.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I don't. Some days I might want to just get up and read my book. I may want to get up and spend time with my children, if they're up already, or spend time with my wife or whatever. If it's 24 hours in a day, I can spend them however I like as long as I'm the boss.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to how the hours are split, in the beginning, entrepreneurs there's a cash flow quadrant. I wish I had a board or something to draw this with, but there's just basically 4 quadrants, and E is for employee, little b is for small business owner, big B is for business owner, and I is for investor. And I think most entrepreneurs, when they say starting a business, I'm going. That's it. I got a gift. I'm starting a business. They don't realize that you're really owning a job. The moment you stop doing that thing, you stop making
Yeah.
money. So being transparent with you, my wife, in my opinion, everybody applauds her. I do too. Hell, I'm her biggest fan. But she owns a job. My wife does graphic design. If that computer ain't open, she ain't making no money. Our focus
Yeah.
this year is to make her more passive money. The reason why I bought real estate is because, yeah, it's never 100% passive. But I don't got to talk to these tenants every single day. I don't talk to them when there's a maintenance request or nothing. I rarely speak to my tenants. I got a maintenance guy that goes. They know to contact me via email unless there's an emergency house burning or something like that. You give me a shout. But I'm so transparent even with myself. I know that, like, I'm a competitor. I work hard, but I work hard so I can be lazy. I like to be lazy. So I'm busting my ass now so that way I can just be lazy. My goal is to go outside, play catch with my kids, run around, do whatever, have this free time. All entrepreneurs want that. Like you said, the traveling and everything. But what you got to do to get it is otherworldly. You're going to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard as you did as an employee, for yourself. You got
Mm-hmm.
to just be willing to go that extra mile. It's not going to be all fun and games in the beginning. And some people's
Yeah.
processes take a lot longer. For me, fortunately, I know my game well and I've been able to scale up. But for somebody, for example, who braids hair, I mean, what you gonna hire a robot to braid it? Like, I don't really understand what's your
Or
plan
create your
for.
own shop and then get other
There,
people until
there
you're
you
ready. Teach the
thank you.
same
See
thing.
that?
Yeah.
Right. That's how I think. I'm like, you're gonna make a lot more money being the braider, especially depending on the city. Cool. But how long can you braid? The wrist gonna hold up for 30 years, or you got a baby yourself. How long can you do it? Versus, I'm thinking I might owe this landlord or this bank $2,000 a month for this space, but I got 6 braiders in there that's paying me $500 a month. You know what I'm saying? And I don't have to braid anything. So while y'all are braiding, I know I'm making money. I can go buy something else. I can go spend my time elsewhere. Even if that's sitting down thinking of the next move, I got time to do so. So I
Mm-hmm.
use my money to buy more time, to buy more money, and not the opposite. I try not to work for money. Like, if you're trading time for money, you'll lose that battle. At the end of the day, time runs out.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say is the extent of sacrifice that you're willing to go to build this dream of entrepreneurship for you? Because some people say this. I remember listening to Grant Cardone. He was like he didn't travel for his first 10 years, but then he looked back on it. He's just like him and his wife. I think it was like on one of their episodes. He was like, if I go back to it, we would travel. We'll do some work while we're traveling, but we'll still have a good time. So I think there's a misunderstanding or a miseducation going around on what level of sacrifice we should take, and everybody takes different sacrifices, but what extent are you willing to go?
Um, that's actually a great question. And I was gonna say that too. Everybody's situation is different, but
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you I'm not willing to, like, well, let me start with this. My wife and I, we're very big on having our own happiness first and
Yeah.
then bringing that to the table. So I shouldn't, basically, I'm saying that to, so anybody won't take this wrong, but I'm not willing to sacrifice their livelihood or their happiness per se, their stability, just for a business venture. I would look at myself and say, yo, bro, figure it the hell out another way. So yes, we travel. I've uprooted my family. Like we just moved into this house, all of the liquidating, the stressfulness, yada yada in 2019. And then June of 2020, we were purchasing our first balloon franchise in Saginaw, Michigan. And my wife had just unpacked our last box like weeks prior. And then
Mm-hmm.
I packed this family up and moved it to Michigan for a business venture. And then recently, as we were having the baby, we were able to get employees to run that business for us. We still pop in every now and then, but that business is now running itself in a sense, and we moved back home. And that
Mm-hmm.
was because this is where we're more comfortable. We got the space, we got the land, whatever. And as I sat back on it, I'm like, if I move, it has to be, worth it for everybody. I now have two children now to look after, and
Yeah.
as they get older, to answer to. I know our parents were more like, I said so, shut up, just because I said so.
Right.
And, I'm still the father figure, I'm still the voice in this home, but my children and my wife have a voice as well. And, we are going to sit down at these tables and discuss where we're moving next. My 3-year-old daughter comes with me to paint houses. And, if I ask her right now, what does your dad do for work? Oh, well, he buys houses and yada, yada. She can spit these things out at you. And I want her involved. And I'm not willing to give up some of these moments. Like I'm watching my daughter learn how to ride a bike right now at 3. I'm watching her learn how to swim. She boxes. She plays baseball. And I could be out making more money, but I had to decide like what's more money. I can cut it up and burn it. They print money every day. She's
Yeah.
only gonna be 3 for 364 days. Then she's 4 the next time and 5. And before you know it, like she asks it now, why are you leaving? When are you coming back? Right now I'm not missing anything, but am I willing to miss that first basketball game?
Yeah.
Maybe she gets the game winning bucket or whatever that looks like, and I'm just not willing to do it because you can't get it back. A photo only goes so far.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you said that because, I'm gonna be a bit vulnerable right here, but I think that's very important because, my dad, he's still at the process where he's hustling, he's in his 50s, he's hustling. And then when I really look back at it, I'm just like, him chasing. I think he had a lot of business ventures when he was younger. I feel like the old school man, they have to do everything by themselves. They don't seek, well, some of them, but obviously they don't seek coaching, mentorship. They learn through experience, and I think that's great because he's very, very smart. But now he's still playing catch up, and it's at the expense that he has a lot of missed time with us. We're all adults. A lot of missed time with his grandkids. His grandkids are getting older. And then I asked that question earlier, and probably a question I want to ask more people because you hear so many people saying, I didn't sleep. I didn't do this. I heard a billionaire is like, hey, my goal was to do XYZ from Monday through Friday. If I did that, guess what? Me and my wife, we doing whatever on the weekend. If I didn't do it throughout the week, I'm working on the weekend. If I did do it on the weekend, I'm doubling it up next week. And I think that's important of planning and having a number or whatever in mind because we sometimes live our lives for our business when in reality our business is supposed to help us live our lives, right?
Right,
So
right.
with all of that being said, I know you do credit repair. Do you do any other mentorship or anything?
Yeah, yeah. I do consulting and stuff like that. And I'm actually just trying to teach this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, being vulnerable to crying, that was never me. I didn't start doing that till I was a married adult.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. So I'm really trying to like throw that into businesses as well. Like, hey, yeah, be prepared for the expenses, the uh-ohs, the oops and stuff like that, but also be prepared to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really like emphasizing that. That's like I actually want to make more money that year. I'm sorry, that way this year. The credit is cool and yada yada, but I want people to come to me for the consulting. Want that to be a larger chunk per se of my money pie, and more so because of what I can give out. I want you to
Mm-hmm.
know about the mistakes that I've made, so you can not make them.
Mm-hmm.
You brung up this lost time and stuff like that, and like honestly, a lot of us just don't know. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I'd rather learn it on my own. I'd rather, do whatever, whatever. And here's what I'd advise: stay at work. just be an employee. It's less stressful.
Yeah.
If you're not gonna, like you said, if you're not gonna make the business eventually work for you, stay at work. Like I say that all the time. People are like, no, I want to be like you, bro. Man, I see what you're doing. I'm like, right, but you don't see what I'm doing at the same time. You don't see some of the
Yeah.
things I'm like,
The
bruh.
mental health aspect.
Right,
It's a
right,
challenge,
right.
you
Correct.
know?
So that's why I'm still playing ball, in my free time, go to LA, get some shots up, or, play pickup games here and there, or going to the gym because I need that getaway. I like to shoot my firearms and stuff like that. But you touched on something, and I wanted to give this nugget. I learned it actually in school. Having a SMART goal. SMART meaning specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. A lot of us just have goals. Oh, I just want to own a business, or I want to buy a house, or whatever. But like no real timeline behind it, no real plan, no real structure. My wife and I are very similar too. We put this stuff in our planner, or we'll text it even in our, we got multiple phones. We'll text it to each other. This is what we want to do today. And I'm like, okay, that's 22 things, and it's only 24 hours, and all this stuff. 8. That's not gonna happen. But what we can do is let's rank these things of what's, and we're different. So different things are important to, whatever. The way I look at it is, I'm a big guy. I eat all day, which means I'm shitting all day too. So I don't necessarily, I guess I'm not nasty. I'm not gonna let my bathroom get mad nasty. But I also, in my mind, me personally, I can clean my bathroom every other week and be okay with it. But for my wife's sake, her sanity, she likes it cleaned every week. So I'm like, all right, well, can we maybe meet in the middle? Today is, not necessarily the week mark. Can we move this around? Do this today, do that today. I'm better when I'm not hangry. So hey, how about we actually throw some food in here, or we go get lunch first and then do whatever. And just more so try to quarterback all these different things, and then allow for some bullshit, allow for some oops time. I got a 3-year-old. She likes to open up cabinets, put hand sanitizer and stuff, act like she's cooking. Hell, they might get sick. They falling off of stuff. They got scars and whatever. Allow for that time. Same with businesses. Don't have your budget so tight that one blown tire or one oil change got you not being able to pay your mortgage. You know what I'm saying? Knowing what you can pay for and knowing what you can afford are two different things. So knowing what you can afford in regards to time and money is
Wow. You know what, Devario? I really appreciated this episode because you gave some nuggets. You were vulnerable. Like, that's real. So, hopefully we can, when you do your next venture that you want to share, hopefully we can talk a lot more about that in the future. But again, everyone, this is the Millennial Network Podcast. This is your girl, Coach Danny Renee, and we are out.
I appreciate
Peace.
you having me. Take care.